Let me call this Tuesday, February the 11th, 2020, Davidson County Board of Commissioners agenda to order. Mr. Krotz will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight as a board and as a county. We want to thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon our county. You have given us items and things and a land that you haven't given anyone else. It is my belief that we have the most beautiful county in the state of North Carolina and maybe even the United States. But we have taken it and you have blessed us and given us the tools to create a great community for our citizens, for families to be raised here. And God, we thank you for that. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Eddie Bowling is from the Thomasville Chamber is scheduled to be here as the representative of the Council of Chambers. Eddie, are you here? I don't believe I saw him. No. Can y'all see anybody else we need to recognize?
I can usually the first row.
We appreciate you all coming tonight, and especially appreciate the staff that's here to be with us tonight. We have a recognition tonight for Deputy Robert Boggs. Mr. Krotz will lead this off.
Sheriff, if you and your deputy and his family wants to come up. The man himself right there. Madam Chairwoman, fellow board members, I believe we all seen on the news that Deputy Boggs, I'll read the newspaper article, but was at a restaurant and saved the day. So Davidson County Sheriff's Deputy Robert Boggs happened to be at the right place at the right time to defuse a fight between two men after one of them fired a gun in a crowded restaurant in Greensboro. Boggs said he was at the Steak and Shake restaurant located on Wendover Avenue in Greensboro on Sunday afternoon when the incident took place. Boggs said he had just sat down at a booth with his wife and daughter after ordering their food, and they noticed two men nearby having a disagreement. He said the verbal altercation quickly turned physical and the two men began fighting, with each of them in the middle of the restaurant. Boggs said at one point during the fight, one of the men pulled out a gun and went off while they were still fighting. He said at that point he knew he had to intervene before someone was seriously hurt. Amen to that, sir. They were throwing each other all over the place and ended up on the floor. Boggs said, "I'm not usually one to jump in the middle of a fight, but when a gun went off, I knew I had to do something." Boggs said he stood up and identified himself as law enforcement and directed customers to get out of the restaurant. At the same time, he drew his personal weapon, which he legally carries when he's off duty, and commanded the two men to drop the weapon and stop fighting. He said they eventually complied, and Boggs held them in custody until Greensboro police arrived shortly afterwards. The two men were arrested and were given felony assault charges. I won't read the rest of it, but I wanted to ask you and your family to come tonight in recognition. You are a fine, upstanding deputy. We're blessed in Davidson County. We have some great deputies and a great sheriff. But we just passed our second amendment resolution just recently, and that right there is exactly why it is important that we have a concealed carry. And you stepped up to the plate when nobody else was, and you protected your wife and your daughter and the other patrons that was in that restaurant. And for that, I can't thank you enough. I know it wasn't here in Davidson County, but that is a symbol and a beacon of exactly what we stand for in our county, and I can't thank you enough. And for that, thank you.
Let me say, first of all, to Megan and Autumn, they were very brave as well in that moment as well. But I've had the honor for Deputy Robert Boggs. I got to teach him in rookie school. I've got to, he was already on the sheriff's office, so I didn't get to hire him, but I would have. I would hire him again and again. He is on the 4th squad. He was animal control to start with, and he worked so hard. He was at second shift, but he'd answer calls when he wasn't on animal calls. He's just incredible young man. And he asked me if he wanted to come out, and I said, by all means, that's what we want to promote, is guys like him. And he is extremely brave. He's extremely dedicated. The thing is, we've got a lot just like him. We have some of the most brave men and women in the world of law enforcement, and I've been amongst a lot of good agencies. They're the top of the chain, and I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of this man, and to say he's one of ours.
Mhm.
One, two, three. One, two, three.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Your work is good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anything you want to say? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Please register for public address if you would like to speak. We'll move on to let you take a look at the agenda. Are there any changes for the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second? Cast your vote, please.
Thank you, all of the votes are in. That motion carries 7-0.
For public hearing tonight, we have a rezoning request by Woodrow M. Leonard Jr. in Lexington Township containing 4.21 acres from
Madam
Yes.
Chair, we need to do public
Oh,
address.
sorry. I am so sorry.
Like to
Did I skip right over it?
Mr. Hill is the only person.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Moving along.
That'll do it.
What do you think?
I apologize, Mr. Hill.
No damage done.
Thank you.
Agenda item 8, Tango. On page 19 of the updated emergency response plan, there are some useful suggestions about what to do in the event of an elevator failure. But with elevators in this building, how do you know the difference between a delay and a failure? Different subject. Not on the agenda. Last Monday night, I received a phone call. The caller said she was calling from New York City and identified her organization as Central Research. She asked me whether I would consent to participate in a poll. I told her I would. It started out as a legitimate poll, but soon revealed itself to be a push poll. A push poll deviously volunteers negative information about one of the candidates, as in, would you be more or less likely to vote for or against candidate X if you knew that he voted for or against Bill Y? Push polls are seldom used in campaigns below the level of U.S. Congress, U.S. House, because they are so expensive. Cowards with deep pockets fund them so that they can hide behind generic sounding names like Central Research. The target of last Monday night's push poll was Eddie Gallimore. I voted for Eddie Gallimore for State Senate in 2012. I have voted for him for State Senate each 2 years since then. In 2018, lightning finally struck. If what he has done in his first term has provoked this kind of overkill from a George Soros, a Mike Bloomberg, or a Stan Bingham, I have no regrets. Early voting starts Thursday.
Now we'll move along. We have a rezoning request by Woodrow M. Leonard Jr. in Lexington Township containing 4.21 acres from OI to RA3. I declare the public hearing open. Mr. Kornman?
Yes.
We'll turn it over to you.
Yes, ma'am. You do have a request tonight by Woodrow M. Leonard Jr. to rezone 4.21 acres, more or less, located in Lexington Township, tax map 331, lot 10F. The property is located on the south side of West US Highway 64, approximately 0.2 of a mile west of the US 52 I-285 interchange. The address of the property is 1001 West US Highway 64. The rezoning is requested to change from O&I Office and Institutional District to that of RA3 Rural Agricultural District. The Planning Board did meet on this application at their January 21st meeting, and their recommendation was to recommend approval. It was unanimous, 5-0. Have you got it up on the screen? Okay. All right. As you can see, the blue area there is city zoning. That is actually the entrance into Childress Winery and the commercial district that's there. This area had been zoned RA3 for ever since the county had zoning. As you remember, we had 300 feet south of US 64 prior to the introduction of zoning in the south end of Davidson County. This O&I district was created about 2 years ago. If you'll remember, we had an application that was a proposal for apartments for seniors to be located at this location. The county did rezone the property. However, they did not secure their financing from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, so the project never did get off the ground. So, but Mr. Leonard is here tonight to discuss his application, and he would like for it to go back to the original zoning, which was RA3.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes, my name is Woodrow Leonard, and we've had this property for sale since '07. And it was zoned at highway commercial first, and then we did it O&I. And we want to put it back in housing. Had no results. And I'd request to get that done.
Sounds good.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak either in favor of or opposition?
Mr. Hill wants to speak.
Mr. Hill.
I know you can't see it, Madam Chairwoman, is I?
I know, I saw him moving.
Oh, okay.
He never fails to speak.
there is contiguity with an existing RA3 district, which is all it should need in this room with this board. This request also demonstrates the dangers of grants. If the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency grant had not been denied, the applicant might have been lured into an unviable project because the subsidy made the project artificially attractive. I am in favor of the rezoning.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak in opposition? So, Mr. Cornman, would you repeat the staff recommendation again?
Sure. Our staff recommendation, is to approve, it is contiguous, as you see, with the existing RA3, along the corridor over there. The property has had it's challenged, topographically. There is some wetlands involved with a creek that's, on the property. It also has some challenges with access because 64 is controlled access, so you would not be able to head west. You would have to turn right and go out and then make a U-turn and go back out to the west. But for those reasons, as well as policy 10.8 of the land development plan lends support of the request, so we are recommending approval.
Madam Chair, if you'd like a motion, I'd make a motion that we, change his zoning back to RA3.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
And that would
And adopt the resolution on statement
So
of
just-
contingency.
always.
Have we closed the public hearing?
Oh, yes, I need to say that. I declare the public hearing closed. I need to say that.
I don't know if there's any other discussion, but.
Commissioner McCoy, could I have your vote, please?
Get to vote twice.
It came in.
Todd,
All
you're
of the
next.
votes are in,
It was
and
Chris,
that motion carries 7-0.
We have a rezoning request by Travis R. Payne in Thomasville Township containing 2.26 acres from RA3 to OI. Mr. Cornman?
Yes, ma'am. We're asking that this, application actually be continued until February the 25th at 6 p.m. The applicant has amended his application. It is a request to rezone property located in Thomasville Township, tax map 309, lot 41A, containing 2.26 acres more or less. The property is further described as being located on the west side of Burton Road, approximately 1,000 feet south of the West Burton Road intersection. Rezoning is requested to change from that of RA3 Rural Agricultural District to, and he's now amended that to be a conditional use office and institutional district. And so, with that, I would just ask the board to continue that, and we'll, properly advertise it and resend notices for that February 25th hearing.
Motion to continue. Second.
Please cast your vote. Now, here's a technical question. Do you have to close the public hearing for that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't think so.
All of the votes are in. And that motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
Okay. Item C, we have text amendments to the zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.13, Table of Dimensional Requirements. I declare the public hearing open.
Okay. For the record, you have a request that was initiated by the Davidson County Planning Board to amend the Davidson County zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.13, Table of Dimensional Requirements, changing the minimum width of lots under the MXR and MXC districts from 75 feet to 65 feet. And we're also asking to amend Article 6, Section 6.03, Standards for Mixed-Use Zoning Districts, subsection B to change from 4 dwelling units per acre to 3, and also amend subsection G to increase the common open space requirement from 10% to 15%. The Planning and Zoning Board did discuss all of this, and at their meeting on the 21st, their recommendation was unanimous, 5-0, to grant the request. I have Planner Scott Leonard here who'd like to kind of explain in a little bit more detail and give you some examples of what we're talking about with these text amendments.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this text amendment came out of a discussion the planning staff had with the planning board over the topic of the increase of developments that we're seeing. With a good economy, it certainly has propelled a desire for more housing. Back in the 90s, we used to do about 20 or 25 subdivisions a year, but they were smaller. We would average about 25 or 35 lots in each subdivision, and then the recession hit and everything stopped. And then about 2013, we started seeing them come back, and now they're coming back a lot heavier than we even anticipated. And this time, when they come back, they're larger. Now the average is about 50 lots per development. And in this discussion that we had with our planning board, it became apparent that a lot of these developments are seeking the MXR rezoning because the location of these developments are near the public sewer, which you have to seek that rezoning. And in that special zoning district, you can cluster the housing together. You don't have a lot size limit that you have to meet or a minimum, but you do have a width. And in the discussion, one of the things that the board realized is every time we go in front of the board and we have any opposition at all is typically the density, the amount of homes that are being allowed in these developments, traffic, everything that you can imagine that the neighborhood would be concerned about. And in our discussions with some developers and the planning board, we thought we would try to do something that may be a win-win for both sides, the county and the developing community, and lower the width size, the minimum lot width for each lot that's created from the present limit of 75 feet down to 65. Now, why is that helpful to anyone? Well, if you're a developer, it cuts down on the length of road that you have to build, which is a cost savings for the developer. They can still develop the number of homes that they want to market, but it cuts down on the length of the road and the construction cost. From the county side, we wanted to try to accommodate or to help or to slow down or to effectually impact the desires of the community and lower the density, the overall density that's allowed, not always requested, but allowed, from 4 dwellings per acre down to 3. And several of our planning board members wanted to increase the amount of percentage of open space from 10% of the project to 15%. And in so doing, they thought that they would have a well-balanced development because they do want to see a little bit more open space than is currently allowed. The pictures here are giving you an example of developments that currently that are nearby that have 65 feet in their width, and you can kind of just see how the homes are close together or the size of them. And I want you to understand too that this is just a minimum. A developer can go larger if he wants to build a larger home. He can certainly do a larger width. But these are just the minimums, and what you're seeing here are 65 feet. And then an aerial photograph kind of shows how the closeness of the developments or the homes on 65 feet. With the additional open space and the lowering of the density that's allowed, we think that we've reached a good compromise. The staff and the planning board both are in agreement. Several of the developers that are developing now, they are seeking this 65, and when we discussed it with them, we certainly didn't have a real defense of the 75. If we really wanted to fight or had a reason to keep the 75, we would defend it, but we really don't. So we thought we could kind of meet their demands and plus meet the constituents' demands of a little less density offered and some more open space. So that's what's before you tonight. Be glad to answer any question that you may have about this text amendment.
I'm confused. Maybe I'm the only one up here. How do you decrease the density by making the lot smaller, where you can put more houses in a certain area?
It's a good question. What we're trying to do, there are two separate regulations. Overall, the acreage that you have, We're allowing you right now to ask for 4 dwellings per acre overall, and you can cluster them wherever you want to do it. But we're wanting to lower that to only 3 dwellings per acre overall. So no matter where you are, you're going to be limited to a certain number of houses. But by lowering the width, we're allowing you to build that number of homes that you're going to be allowed on a smaller amount of road length, which cuts down on the cost of the development, which helps the developer. It's a little closer living, but they feel that they are marketing these things and people are buying them. So you're helping the developer save money, but you're not allowing him to add more homes than he already would be. If we kept it at 75 feet wide and we still lowered the density to 3, he'd still get the same number of homes as if we lowered it to 65. I don't know if I explained it well enough, but it's 2 separate regulations. One doesn't affect the other, is the best way I can try to explain it. It's kind of, the 2 are a compromise so that the developer gets something and we do too.
You said the open space is from 10% to 15%?
15%, yes.
So we're adding more open space requirement.
But the open space is like walkways and trails or.
Green space.
But I see that making the lot smaller is cutting down on the roadway, but still, you still got the same amount of, from 10% to 15%, the open space would take care of that, wouldn't it?
If I could say it this way, most of our developments that we see have no trouble meeting the 10%. That's usually land they can't use anyway. A lot of it's floodplain land or whatever. By increasing it to 15, we're requiring them. It's requiring them to increase it's easy to get 10, maybe not so easy to get 15. And by increasing the 15, we're making them give an appropriate spot for amenities to be placed in. If the development wants to do a walking trail, a playground, whatever they would want, it increases some usable land for that. That's the hope in it. Here again, if we take a 100-acre tract of land and tell them that 15% of that has to be open, because they have public sewer, and we allow them to ask for 3 dwellings per acre, it's still 3 dwellings per acre over the whole project, but now they can cluster them in one area and still have plenty of land for the open space. Our hope is to give the community a little bit more area to utilize for their own recreation, whether it's active or passive.
You're actually picking up $10,000, 10,000 square feet per acre for the additional house they can't build, or one house less. So you're picking up 10,000 square feet there, it would go into your 15%.
Yeah.
15%
But one thing I haven't heard, and I'm just trying to get a grasp of how this thing works. I've heard a lot about the contractors' benefit for the contractors, but what about the people moving those houses that's stacked on top of each other? You can't even have a dog, hardly.
You're a lot like me. I want no part of it.
Increase the lot sizes, we've done all of that, and now we're stacking people on top of one another. And I just wonder how that's gonna factor in to make that a better subdivision.
The only thing I can answer that is I certainly wouldn't want to live in it, but they're selling like hotcakes. They're selling them as quick as they can get the roof on them. And it just seems to be the market that's driven out there.
Is it cheaper? I mean, for a buyer, is he gonna pay the same price for a 65 lot as he would a 75 lot?
Can't answer that one. That's another good question that we leave up to the developer. He's got to sell his product. If he wants a smaller home or a larger home, it will dictate how wide that lot has to be. We're giving him the opportunity to go down to 65 to have a smaller home. You're right. One of the things we've noticed, if this helps in any way, is unlike decades ago when every large development we ever saw was in Arcadia, Midway, and Abbott's Creek, it's coming closer to home now. We're seeing large tracts of land around Lexington. We're getting local developers who are wanting to develop right here within a 5-mile radius of Lexington. And they're telling us that there's a certain range of home that they can sell in the Lexington market where they couldn't sell them if they brought the homes from Midway and Arcadia down here. So they're asking for a little smaller width so that they can build those homes that are sellable in this market if they want to target that. And I'm not saying that's just where they're going.
They're easy to sell. But you have some people that don't want that. I mean, it's each individual person.
Well, you know, I recall going down to Charlotte with
Yeah, we went.
Guy, and you got enough space between the houses to drive a car, that's about it.
That's about it. You're right.
But,
You're right.
but you don't even need a car, you just, everything's there in that community.
People don't want any property to maintain these days. They don't want it.
Seems to be.
Well, you know, I've heard people across the county, though, say they don't wanna live in Forsyth County, they wanna live in Mecklenburg, they don't wanna live in Guilford, but we're fastly becoming Mecklenburg, Guilford, and Forsyth County. And we keep making compacted areas to throw a house in, and people move on top of each other, and if the dog breaks wind, the neighbor hears it. It's getting to the point that at some point we gotta see what's best for our citizens. Not necessarily the contractors do a great thing. I mean, they participate, they build, but when do we start looking out for the people who live here and what they want out of their community? I mean, that's all I'm saying. It just seems like to me it's all about money, that's sell. And what about live? What about life? To me, that's a concern. I think we've been more than gracious with what we've allowed, and they want more and more, so we put more and more houses.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, you're gonna be of Mecklenburg, you're gonna be of Guilford County, you're gonna be of Forsyth County. And then turn around and tell everybody, I don't wanna live in Forsyth, I don't wanna live, well, you are. You're turning this into it, basically. And, I mean, I got a problem with neighbors living on top of one another. I'm sorry, I just do.
I understand.
Because I think we've been more than generous in what we've provided in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing it 54 cents.
54 cents. Mm-hmm.
Any more questions for Mr. Leonard?
I think that, on what, Steve was talking about, the extra 5%, where they can put more amenities in, will help the people that are in there. And as we have seen over and over and over again, you don't dictate the market dictates the development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak either in favor of or in opposition?
This is about the way the text is set up. The numerals for sections ought to be Arabic, and the numerals for articles ought to be Roman. At least that's the way it is in the ordinance I have. So there's capital V's and capital I's and
Yes, sir.
Roman numerals to make it consistent with the way that the ordinance came out. As to the substance, I'm offended by this, implied adversarial relationship between developers and everybody else. I like Mr. Leonard's language, but I don't, and I will take his side over Mr. Shell. I don't like paternalism, but I would go beyond what Mr. Leonard's offering. What I see is one step forward and two steps back. The developer is going to have to relinquish one unit out of the four and increase the open space from 10 to 15. But if you'll think about it, that's a 50% increase. in exchange for the 10-foot reduction in the minimum width. So, I don't see why there's a necessity to be punitive on this. I mean, that they have conflicting interests. As Mr. Leonard said, build for the customer what he wants built. And what's trendy is the neoclassical, neo-traditional, smart zoning, with walkable areas and that kind of thing. And it should be between the buyer and the seller in the transaction, not the government and the neighbors. I speak in favor of the one gain and against the two sacrifices, and would like to see you go back and reevaluate some of the other arbitrary numbers that are in this ordinance.
Would anyone else like to speak?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Brad Coe. I work for a lot of developers, you folks know me, you know that's what I do, land planning, surveying, subdivisions. I like this text amendment because I feel that the number of units per development will be roughly equivalent, but there will be less impervious area. There will be less street and more open space. So I think that both sides, as Mr. Leonard said, I think it's a win. I understand Mr. Shell's concern, and I'm doing a large lot subdivision for people that want that in Davidson County right now. It was a use by right subdivision, so it doesn't come to this board. So there are large lot subdivisions ongoing. I'm doing one of them. But I think this balances the two potentially opposing viewpoints. Well, you'll get roughly the same number of houses, but there'll be more open space that doesn't create as much runoff. So I would support it and appreciate your vote in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any further discussion by the board?
Ready for a motion?
Okay.
Less impact per acre, so the overall.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, I declare the public hearing closed. May I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve, the text amendment, Madam Chairwoman.
And a second?
And we also included a consistency statement that talks about the policy statements that are in support of this change.
Yeah, I amend my motion to include what Guy said.
And
Second by Mr. Elliott.
Mr. Elliott seconds. Please cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. And that motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Mr. Corman.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Leonard. Okay, are there any items to remove from the consent agenda for discussion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve consent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Cast your vote.
I have your vote, I got your second. Thank you. All of the votes are in.
I knew it'd get down.
And that motion carries 7-0.
For deliberation tonight, we have 5 items. The first item is the courthouse, Casey will lead off about the courthouse finishes.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna turn this over to Dwayne, actually. This is a continuation from a facilities committee conversation we had the other day about finishings up at the courthouse.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I got some help up here as well. These are the folks from Barn Hill, Kenny Hickle, Brian Rose and, Dan Norman, which is our architect, working on the design team. And they're gonna kinda take you through it. This has already been through the facilities committee, and the facilities committee thought it'd be a great idea to bring this before the full board, so everyone can see what the finishes are gonna look like. Dan?
Obviously, we don't have every single finish here represented. These are the ones that we've actually got up to this point, that we could actually start making some decisions. And I'm just gonna start arbitrarily right over here on this side. Bathroom walls for the public areas are gonna be this for the ceiling on this. This is the grout color, it's gonna be coordinated with that. These are gonna be the floors. So you get a little bit darker color grout next to that, you can see that when it's almost black. That was the idea here. And you'll notice a gray tone, monochromatic, and that was intentional, that's what we're doing there. Let me start, I'll go here to the bottom. This is just for the stairwells, this is the riser tread, and then, riser on the back, and then the tread, on that part of that. So cool. LVT, luxury vinyl tiles, we're gonna be picking, these two. This would be such, I believe you mentioned possibly in the elevator itself. It looks like a kind of a stressed concrete. These are gonna be in the break room, those type areas, workroom, also a combination of this in the workroom area, everything back behind the scenes. And also on the third floor, we can get it right off the elevator. This carpet here is what we call a walk-off carpet. It's going to be at the security area as soon as you come in. It has the same abrasion and texture like cleans your feet, so it cleans your building as the people come in. It's going to be a security area. That's what this is. Courtrooms. This will be this carpet. This is a 24-inch square tile. It can be placed down and then doing kind of quarter turn pattern. That'll be throughout the main part of the area. We do have some areas that have ramps on, which have to be broad loom, so they don't slip. That'll be the coordinating color right beside it. This also worked for the, some of the offices that would have carpets in there as well. In the areas, that are going to be back behind the scenes, this is the spiral composite tile. This is the lighter color, it will just also blend in with the rest. There'll be like gaskets, closets, and areas like that. This very far emblem over here was the display plaque. That's where we're gonna have the naming of the building along with the commissioners. You guys be on that plaque. It'll be a darker plaque like this with a background. Has aluminum that gets etched off, so that way you'll see it and exposed. This will be the main building lettering. On the building itself out front, I didn't bring the rendered image, but all the lettering that's gonna be up, something like this. It'll be on the brick, which we don't have the brick yet. We're actually working on that mock-up sale, so we'll have full-size pipe panels so you guys can take a look at it. But this will be the lettering that's on top of that. Casework. Is the primary casework color, and it's real similar to this color here, or the lighter color, real similar to that. That was gonna be for the back wall and all the judging benches, the main judging benches themselves, and also all the other casework, all the main desk and handles and all that area there. This is a aluminum reveal, which is also gonna be integrated into the walls and also the casework itself, and some of the casework. This is gonna be the surface, this is gonna be the surface for it, for all the countertops back behind. But in the specialty areas such as clerk of court, cashiers, those type of things, we have a solid surface, which is gonna be a compatible. So it's a good grade surface. This here happens to be a color that's going down below, almost like a baseball running along the bar.
So that right there.
Do you think that
That's
light,
the back of the judge's
that
sign.
light brown is gonna go with the gray? No, those are casework that you were talking about.
This casework right here.
I know, do you think that's gonna go with the gray?
We think it does, it complements this one as it goes into the room, especially most of the places it's either gonna be against the carpet, or it's gonna be, probably against it, it's gonna have casework.
Is that about the same color we got now in the rest of the?
It's very similar to about what you have here. And it's the same families. Still try to keep it as grays and kind of neutral type colors.
How did y'all get to this point here?
How?
Yeah, how do you get to this
A lot
point?
of these, we had actually picked, kind of early on. Now, whenever Barnell actually put it out to price and bid, they have to get competitive bids on that. So some of those actually name brands that we asked for, we got. Some were, asked for equivalent, that's right. So we basically took their samples that they give us, make our best choices against that, and then put us through this. Then we, pulled together those couple.
What's the year rate on the carton?
That's what I was gonna ask.
I think this is actually the Shaw product, and that's a very good commercial. I mean, it's not your low, it's not your real high, but it's a good equivalent carpet in the middle. It's duration, as most of them tell you, that it should be hopefully a 10-year product.
That was what I was gonna ask in terms of durability in those high traffic areas, so.
Well, and the nice thing about the quarter turn carpets or those carpet squares, if you do happen to have, spill something on it, you pull one piece up, pop another one down, and they're, like I said, they're kind of what's called quarter turn. They take one pattern, and they're in a direct linear line. They offset each one by 1 quarter turn. It's like, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, just change it. And it just randomizes the pattern, so you can be at specific areas where you get really, really warm, flush it down. That's a nice thing.
And the highest wear surfaces are gonna be terrazzo in the hallways where you have the most use, in which that's the hardest finished product you can get, so.
And we do have samples of that coming on the way, but we didn't have those to present, but they're also going to be in the same tone, trying to keep the building throughout the same.
The only thing I'm not crazy about is that G there that goes on the outside of the building. Yeah, I don't know what any other options are, but yeah.
The finish or the color?
Yeah, I guess,
Now, on the building, I think we were showing, if I remember correctly, they might be 24 inches tall. I mean, because it's going to be up.
right, I mean, it's gotta be bigger than that, I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know what the other options are, but to me.
Fairly similar to what's there now.
Right, I know that's what's on there now, and I don't really like that, but I know that's a minute deal in this whole deal, so I'm just saying it's not been one of my favorite ceilings inside the buildings.
The one thing I think would be really neat on the courthouse is if we use the same font that's on the old courthouse, so the U actually looks like a V. Now, that's just my personal opinion, but I just think that's cool.
We have seen that before, and it's usually in the older courthouses, they do the V instead of the U. We figured that this being a modern take on it, needs to be U. It's also the word courthouse itself. Some places it's split, some it's together. So it's really all over the place.
That came from Latin, didn't it?
I believe so. Judge Michael kind of give us a little bit of rundown where that came from at one time.
Chuck probably knows that then.
I mean, it's definitely not a deal breaker for me, but I'm just saying, I had never liked it on the courthouse down there, so.
And then
I
typically
don't know.
aluminum, it actually oxidizes and ages well, but once it's 35 to 40 feet up in the air, it's gonna be a little bit harder to get to clean, that kind of thing. That might be exactly why. The colors, they do a lot better with them today.
You're talking about the font.
No, just the colors, just the colors of it.
I think that's the same color we used on the, down at the Board of Elections on the house.
Yeah. Sounds correct. It's pretty universal, but it's not to say we couldn't get a color.
Right, and I'm okay with it, like I say, I'm just saying, me personally, of course, if it ain't cat yellow, John Deere green, I don't really know what color it is. But I'll keep my eye open around some buildings and just see what some other places has got between now and then. Y'all not ordering this anytime soon, I wouldn't think, the lettering.
No, we'll probably have 3 months for more than that.
It's probably gonna be fine, but like I say, I'll just kinda keep my eye open.
If you do have to come up with something, this is real similar to the storefront or the curtain wall. It's all that clear and it does aluminum, so it does tie in with it. But, we could get the opportunity to change it if you want.
I'm good.
What are you using on the roof?
It's no big deal.
And you, kinda like your reveal metal, your wrap metal, it's gonna be on the front. So I've seen a lot of people match that also, if you're gonna use a copper or if you use.
Yeah, in our case, we have a precast, concrete tops that are capping all of ours, so it'll be more of a light color. And this is the same, so it should be the same color as the masonry. this back behind it, so the concrete, color itself and the measure should be really, really close. So it's gonna be a lighter color.
Like I say, I'm good. If I see something that really.
So, we're looking for a general consensus. Do we have a general consensus that the finishes are okay?
Okay, me.
Okay,
Yep, we're good.
okay. So I think that's all we need to say. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Madam, Chair, do I need to have a motion to be excused, or can I
Yes.
just go ahead and leave?
Okay.
Commissioner Cross be excused for senior night at the high school.
Okay. Do I have a second?
He's gonna graduate.
You want that verbal?
I could be a
Verbal.
senior.
Gonna graduate.
Verbal? Sure. Mr. McClure?
It only took me 38 years.
Okay.
Have a verbal vote on that?
Yeah, everybody's okay.
Everybody said yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, my daughter's got a senior night. I gotta go.
Our second item is the courthouse security X-ray and scanning equipment. Dwayne is going to lead us in this as well. Are you looking for someone else to take care of it?
A little bit of help from, our manager.
I can tee it up, I think, pretty
Okay.
fairly easily, and then Dwayne can help me fill in the gaps. At the facilities committee, we had and I walked in late, so I had to apologize, a pretty lengthy discussion about leasing versus buying, scanning equipment, the entryway equipment going into the courthouse. So I think from that conversation, we created kind of a comparison you've got in your agenda item here of kind of let's start with the cost. Lease versus buying. As you can see, the purchasing outright option is probably cheaper. There's maintenance fees that's gonna have to be applied even after the warranty period ends in both columns. I feel like you got apples to apples here. That's really the question on the table is, do we wanna go ahead and purchase these items? I can go ahead and tell you, you've got a lengthy discussion, answer in your agenda item, but we're basically covering this within the GMP within the project. So it's no additional appropriation, it's no additional funds required to do it. We're gonna handle it within the project. Remember how we got to that point too. We sold some debt, we had some savings off the project initially. We bought some shelving, we fixed the air conditions, we got good bids on concrete after we rebid them. So all of those funds come together. You're gonna be drawing some of that off the million, and that leaves what's hopefully the last piece left, which is furnishings or dressing out of the courtrooms, the pews and those kinds of things. And hopefully we've got exactly the amount of funds left available on that based on the prices we're looking at now, and that'll end the entire project. But I guess the question on the table tonight is, do you guys want to go ahead and purchase these machines as opposed to leasing them?
I missed that part of the facilities committee meeting the other day, so you guys will have to bring me up to speed on what the discussion there was.
Mr. Elliott?
The reason in the facilities committee, we wanted you, to take a look at it was because we had the two options. And, felt like the board ought to make the choice between the options. But the option breaks down, it saves us about $30,000, I think, to go ahead and purchase it. And the money's already there for it, we don't have to, go in our budget, current budget.
Mr. Manager, is there upside or downside to one way or the other there?
For me, no, it's financial is the way I'm looking at it. So the cheaper option, because again, the company can remove, and the way I understand it, we contact them out of our office, they can remove the old machines kind of either which way we go.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem just going ahead and purchasing them outright. There was already an allowance built into the GMP for this option. It just happens to come slightly short of making this all happen. So we're drawing off the million to get it done, but I'm okay with it. Commissioner Troy will go ahead and purchase it outright. These machines last quite, length of time, as you can see.
The equipment we got now, we own them or we lease them?
We own those and pay a little bit of maintenance on them. I don't think we've paid much over. How many years we paid maintenance on these things?
I wanna say, you wanna come up?
But I don't know how old they are as well.
And I'm not sure how old they are either, but the maintenance is gonna be considered pretty much what we have right now. It's a yearly thing. The difference is the new ones are gonna be a dual generator, whereas what we have now is a single generator. Of the three that we have now, we started cannibalizing to save money because we did shut down one door. So we've started taking parts from the spare to keep what we've got going. So we do have issues in which it's coming, we're gonna have to replace them, so I think now would be the time.
What's the difference between the dual and the single? I mean, what?
The easiest way to explain, if you send a package or pocketbook or a book bag, whatever, through what we have right now, you get one view. It's a straight view. If something in that picture looks not right, then we've got several options. We gotta start sending it back through this way. Then if it's still, we gotta start sending it back through this way, and then the last option is just start searching, pulling stuff out. With the volume of traffic we have, it's taking too much time. The dual is taking a picture this way and a picture this way. So you're getting clear cuts to where you don't have those anomalies.
Okay. Good info. It's good info.
How many machines we're talking about?
Is it two?
Two.
Two machines at this cost?
But we got maintenance on them, whether they leased or.
Right, that's what
either
we
way.
tried to show you here with the cost is apples to apples over a period of time, not just for 1 year, but when you start applying maintenance to both columns, now you're seeing what the true picture looks like. But the initial cost is the $192 to buy them. There will come a day we'll need the maintenance, because it's covered in the initial 5-year warranty. There's one last piece to what I've got here, and we're gonna use a piggybacking opportunity through GSA, because there's a local company that deals with these things, but we'll have radiation tests on these as well, so we've got a quote here for that. But what we're asking for permission tonight is go ahead and purchase and deal with the radiation and handle it within the courthouse budget.
That's the most expensive. It seems like it has worked out well. We purchased the last ones, and we've used them for years, so. Purchasing worked out well for that, so I'm good with buying them.
Do I have a motion and second to purchase this equipment?
I'll make the motion, we purchase.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if the motion can include also to do the radiation testing.
And also the radiation.
Make that happen.
Okay. And we have a second
What else you want
by
put in
Mr.
there?
Elliott. Cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. And that
Thank you
motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our third item tonight is the discussion on the Colonial Drive security options, and Mr. Smith will lead this off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hoping this will be our final installment of our conversation about this. At the last meeting, the board directed staff to go ahead and work on a request for proposals to send out for, as we've shown you, potential options of what it could cost to do company policing. I think we answered hopefully all the questions about arrests and those kinds of things and the ability for the company policing to be able to do that. Since that time, though, I did have a conversation with the city of Thomasville, who does run a program to allow off-duty officers to come and sign up through the police department to work with the variety. They work with companies now, and they would have no problem working with us to provide basically contract security at Colonial Drive. You have a sample employment agreement our county attorney drew up for you to review there. It's pretty basic, and it's $23 an hour. It's a flat rate. That's what they pay. That's what they charge for everyone. We've already got it set up over there where we'll have a desk option for them, a desktop that patches into cameras through the whole building. I'll build them a little timesheet where you can keep track of that. What we're asking the board tonight is their preference as to whether they want to continue with the RFP, because I put a stop to it immediately after having this conversation with them. Because in an annual year, at a worst case scenario, if you did this for 20, 80 hours a year, it's going to be a little bit cheaper, obviously, than the company policing option. But the request before the board tonight is if they wish to allow us to go ahead and utilize the employment agreement, we'll get with Thomasville, sign some of those officers up, and begin the process of allowing them to start providing security at Colonial Drive.
Madam Chairwoman, could I speak? First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Shell for not only your years of expertise, private eye, working for the Sheriff's Department, but looking further into this and making sure that the citizens are going to get a good deal. I'd also like to thank Mr. Kelly out of the city of Thomasville for reaching out, working with our county manager and them working out an agreement, because I think this is a really good deal. And I'd just like to thank the staff for going the extra mile. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam?
Yes, sir.
One question. When you read over this, were you satisfied with independent contractor status?
The contract was drafted, and it says on 3 different occasions within the contract that it does not create an employer-employee relationship, and the officer enters into the contract as an independent contractor. There are different tests that are used under the law to determine whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor. It would take an evaluation of each of those specific tests to determine whether that is the case or not.
So there's no black and white answer to this?
There is not a black and white answer to that. I've spoken with the county manager about that. I have also spoken with our HR director. We have done some research, and it is ultimately, I think, going to be up to interpretation on that. So there is an area of potential liability there.
Mr. Fry,
Yes, ma'am.
is this discussion at a point where we might need to go into closed session?
Discussion needs to go any further than this if there are any additional questions from the board.
If there are other questions by the rest of you?
I deal with this when I insure contractors with paying their employees 1099s instead of W-2s. And the way the insurance treats it is if you control the person's hours, his duties, what time he comes to work, and what time he leaves, and what he does when he gets there, he's a W-2, not a 1099. An employee and not an independent contractor.
So this is definitely something that we need to go to closed session.
I got some.
Can we have some concerns and more questions perhaps at this point in time? Okay. I think in light that we have 2 other items after this, do I need a motion to?
Amend the agenda?
Yes.
Amended at this point? Okay.
Madam Chair, in your discretion, you can simply rearrange the items in the schedule in which they're heard. You may elect at this point just to hold this open and move on to the next matter.
Okay, let's do that at this time, and then we'll go into closed session at the end. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, item number D is bulldozer purchase for the landfill. Dwayne, again, you're the star tonight. Will you lead this off?
He's looking at Casey again.
And
Looking for Charlie Brushwood.
Mr. Brushwood might need to help us as well.
Right. This is the purchase of a new bulldozer that's needed out at the landfill. It's Komatsu, and this is also a state contract opportunity. And it looks like the price is a little more than $185,000. Charlie, you wanna talk about?
Plus tax, I think.
Yes, sir. You wanna talk about the current bulldozer you got just for a second?
Yeah, our current dozer's a 1992, and we've been having trouble with it all year and stuff. It's in the shop right now, and so I went to the SWAC committee and stuff, and before the meeting even started, I talked to Commissioner Yates, and I said, we're looking at trying to get some other kind of dozer, and told him what we were looking at, and he said, I think that dozer has stuff on it you don't need. And he kind of checked on it and stuff and found out that sure enough and stuff that what he found and found on state contract saved us $70,000. So, Commissioner Yates really helped us out a lot. And so at this time and stuff, we're looking at trying to go ahead and get the 4 replaced. And then we go ahead and just sell the D4 and stuff whenever it comes back from the shop.
Madam Chair, could I address Charlie and that? Thank you, Charlie, for that information, because that committee meeting is what all the commissioners, we all have different committees. And in that moment of time right there, in a second, in a judgment from Commissioner Yates, he says $70,000 of taxpayer money. And that needs to be commended. I appreciate you, Commissioner Yates, for taking the onus to do that. A lot of people, a lot of decisions are made like that behind the scenes every day, and it goes unnoticed. And it's because we want to keep that 54-cent tax rate. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, sir.
I do have a question. Is the one that you're considering purchasing at about the same size as the one that's been in the shop?
It's actually just a little bigger. And when we
Okay.
first got the D4, for how much stuff was coming in, it was big enough, but
And this new one is large enough?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what they need a new dozer. They spent more on the old one than it's actually worth, and it's still in the shop. So
Right, right.
We won't never get our money back out of it that we spent on it in the last year, so it'd be my suggestion they take it as soon as they get it out and sell it before we put any more money in it.
Is that a
Any
motion?
other
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Motion.
to approve it.
I'll second.
motion and second? Please cast your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
When they gonna deliver?
I thought the gentleman told.
Yeah.
Waiting on this meeting.
All of the votes are in. And that motion carries by vote 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Casey's gonna lead us off on the Davidson County Airport Authority hangar debt relief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Davidson County Airport's got 3 old notes that they got with the county years ago for purchasing, hangars out at the airport. They've been paying on those notes, and I think you can see it there in your agenda item. You've got one as far back as 2001 and one as recent as 2008. Those all have varying interest rates, and as you can see from the table, they're just shy of $19,000 of paying back what they basically originally borrowed. Allowing them to have back the relief on this will free them up some budget funds during the year. Their budget, as you know, is only about $368,000 a year to run the whole airport. So this will free up some initial funds to operate, if you will, and what that'll be used for, or could be used for, several things. I've been a member of the DCA board, or the Liaison board, forever. They have always had maintenance issues out there, whether it's hangars, leaking roofs. One year we had water in the fuel farm tank we had to fix. All of these things, we got cracks in parking lots, cracks around the area, AWAS system updates, those kinds of things. They're always needing local funds for matches, for grants. This would provide them the opportunity to be able to do that. So what you've got before you tonight is what we're asking the board to do is to give them the debt relief to take away what they owe, basically an interest on those old notes, pay out what they owe initially, which is the 1.484 million there, and then they'll be able to start fiscal year basically 2021 debt-free for the moment, until they kind of figure out they're in the process of wanting to look and do more hangars. And so they may be coming back to us at some point in time and talking to Lexington as well. So, we'll stay tuned for that. But for this part here, I'm comfortable with the fact that they paid back what they originally asked us to borrow anyway, years ago. And it allows them, again, the ability to help run the airport much more effectively and not have funding so tight, basically.
It's an essential part of our EDC too, if you wanna look at it that way, so we need to make sure we invest in our airport.
I think so as well.
So, if you need a motion, I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
Please cast your vote.
One other thing about that, I don't know about you guys, but the airport does a phenomenal job, so appreciate that, Casey, for y'all sitting on the board or whatever. That airport has grown. Most of the other airports around here is decreasing in business, and ours is increasing, so.
And I think another point, how many people are on the waiting list, did they tell you?
Probably active. You got some transient folks, but I'd say active at least 30.
30 people on the waiting list.
Wow.
And this will free them up again. There may be a conversation coming soon to this board about T hangars, but Jason's on that, he's liaison now. I'm gonna let them work through that conversation, let DCAA make some type of recommendation, because on the table at one point in time was doing the avionics hangar, which is way more expensive, and doing that through grant funding with the state and trying to get matching funds through Red Leg. Then the conversation sometimes shift to T hangars, which is more of what these folks are on the waiting list for. So I'd like to see DCAA come out of they don't have funding to do both. So come out of that with some type of recommendation to this board, and perhaps to the city as well. We would like you to help us with this, or some option. And Jason's got enough tools to help them work through that process. So stay tuned, it'll be coming soon.
Is the airport in the city limits of Lexington?
It is.
It is?
Yes, sir.
And Commissioner Shell, I can, I'll verify this, but I believe they're actually closer to 40 to 45 on the waiting list now.
Do I,
That's picked up a lot from what it was.
do I have a
Passes by a vote of 6-0.
6-0?
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to
Motion to go into
move
closed session.
closed session? Second. All in favor? Okay.
Yep. I don't know if I got a second yet or not.
Do I have a second?
You seconded?
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
I say, John, I didn't even recognize you back there.
He said thank you.
What do you say, John?
You're welcome, you're welcome.
John Gray. John Gray.
Is everybody in? Mr. Fry, I'll call on you.
Madam Chair, in closed session, the board considered a matter under attorney-client. No formal action was taken. It is my understanding, however, that on returning to open session, the board wished to consider giving further direction to the manager and staff with regard to the provision of security services at the Colonial Drive facility, and specifically to direct that the county manager prepare for consideration by the board a RFP for the provision of such security services.
You need a motion like that?
I believe that was the
So
intent of
moved.
the board.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Is that okay, Deb?
That's fine.
Aye.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Third.
All in favor?
What was that?
Aye.
What's adjourned?
I don't think so.